This is The Issue here on your TV. I'm Mark Carr, and we'll be broadcasting from the safety of our homes. I'm at home, my co-host is at home, our producer is at home, and our guests are safe at home. We'll be broadcasting this way for future episodes of The Issue to keep social distancing and remain safe. My co-host this week is Kim Slonwhite, the owner, president, CEO, and chief bottle washer for Clear Path Media. Hello, Kim. How are you coping with this pandemic?
Good morning, Mark. I'm doing pretty well over here. It's remarkably quiet, and for the most part, quiet is good. How are you doing over there?
We're all doing well, going up the walls because we just want to get outside and get back to normal. But I know normal is going to be a new kind of normal.
Yeah, that's right. And now that we've finally got some decent weather, it's nice to at least get fresh air. That's one nice bonus that's happened recently.
It sure is. We're all coping with COVID-19 as best we can, but as a business owner, you must be experiencing additional difficulties.
Oh, it's whole new times. Completely different business model for me. Obviously, clients are challenged as well. So what we've decided to do today is have on a local business owner to talk to us about his local business, which is a niche grocery store in Burlington. Are you ready for me to introduce my guest?
I am, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay, so with us today is Daniel Nudo. He's the owner, one of two owners of Marilu's Market in Burlington. And if you're not familiar with Marilu's, you're not from Burlington, because everybody knows about Marilu's. There's a really nice grocery store at, now Daniel could correct me, I believe it's Appleby and New Street or Walker's Line.
New Street and Walker's Line.
New Street, Walker's Line. So Daniel, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. Now, this is your first time on TV, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. My second time on Zoom. So
wow, look at you go. Yeah, making big changes these days.
That's right.
So, Daniel, I'd like to start a little bit with not jump right into what we're doing now, but what was business like before the pandemic? And then tell us how it's changed for you as a business owner.
Well, business for us was, it was steady. Not too much has, had changed in the last, 5 years. We kind of had our rhythm and our flow where, Christmas would come around and it would be busy, and January would come by and it would get slower again, and February would be the same kind of thing. And then once the weather kind of picks up, usually our business would pick up because we were pretty well known in the area for fresh meats and produce and that kind of thing. So people coming in for all your barbecued goods.
Right.
And then, COVID hit and it kind of turned everything on its head.
Right. And not just from your customer's perspective, but from getting items from suppliers, you're probably having some challenges there, how to work safely. Can you tell us a little bit about your employees and their experience working with this?
Well, at first it was a big shock because it kind of just, you can't say that it came out of the blue, but it kind of happened right around the time of, everyone was planning to take some time off for March break and be with their kids. And then all of a sudden it was kind of, businesses were closing and there was travel restrictions and all that kind of thing. And, for our employees, there were quite a few that were, they were scared, or they were, put outside of their comfort zone. So as, business owners, we had to kind of adjust our policies with, people taking time off and not coming into work, that kind of thing.
Right, and I understand that you instituted a policy where anyone that works for you, if they didn't feel comfortable, they were more than welcome to stay home. Is that true?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was always fear of kind of reprisal and
Yeah.
that kind of thing, but it kind of came down to somebody had to stay home because they had somebody in their household who was at risk, or obviously if they had to watch their kids, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It just came to the point where we said, what, you guys take as much time as you need. You let us know when you want to come back. We'll work with you, and we'll adjust your schedule and your work days and that kind of thing. And so far, it's been what, 10 weeks now, 11 weeks later, it's been working for us still. So we still have a majority.
How comfortable are the employees now? And what have you done to make them comfortable that you wouldn't have to do if it wasn't for COVID-19?
Well, we first of all, the big thing that we did was we kind of cut down our hours in the store, which kind of helped quite a bit with scheduling and that kind of thing. We instituted all sorts of new cleanliness measures. We brought everybody together in all their different departments, kind of reviewing, proper hand washing procedures, that kind of thing. Kind of sanitizing and hosing down everything at night, from the front of the store to the back of the store. And we kind of, it kind of worked out with us, with some people wanting to stay home or having to stay home with their kids. It kind of thinned out quite a few of the departments that if people were to be working in full capacity, the social distancing would be very difficult. So now we have it that people are, for the most part, are able to work at a good distance from one another. For the most part, 6 feet, sometimes not, but and in the last couple of weeks, we've had it where all employees are wearing masks, just to ensure that, if they do come within 6 feet of one another, in the more kind of close-knit departments, there won't be any kind of risk to the employees there. So
yeah, and one of the things, I don't know if you're finding, sorry Mark, is that even though we know social distancing is a thing, it's so easy to slip back into old habits, and especially with work where so much of it is just automatic, and then you find yourself in an awkward situation. So I'm a big believer in masks in workplaces just for that reason.
Yeah.
And then you don't have people stressing and worrying, and that's great.
Yeah, it's been, everybody's kind of getting used to the routine now. And it's been a good transition, so that's good.
Good.
Well, Daniel, I'm impressed with what business generally has been able to accomplish in such a short time. I don't think there has been the transition that has occurred in various businesses over such a short period of time. I'm really impressed, and credit to all the business owners that have instituted these major changes for their business model.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, within 2 weeks, and in no particular order, we had tape on the floors, kind of designating where people should stand for checking out and around the caches. All the cashiers were wearing gloves and sanitizing the belts and the machines after every customer. We had, one of our employees was able to get a hand on some plexiglass dividers, and so we kind of jerry-rigged some of those and put those up within one night when everybody else was starting to do it. And beyond that, we've just kind of been adapting as fast as employees and customers have been kind of requiring us to adapt. And now, public health and everything like that's kind of catching up, but we had to go pretty hard on our own for the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of direction on how to do things, what to do, exactly what worked. That's the remarkable thing about the pivot that so many businesses have had to do, like yours, like you said, overnight. You had
That's
to
right.
figure out ahead of what the government orders were, what was the right thing to do. And ultimately, what dictates our behavior is you want your clients to feel safe. So whatever we need to do to make our clients feel safe is the most important thing, regardless of what the government's saying.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Now, Daniel, when the one thing that I've noticed at grocery stores, I've had $20 bill in my pocket for 10 weeks now, and I just use the tap on the card. So that must be a major change for you as well as me as a customer.
Yeah, I mean, we had a long kind of talk about kind of cash and that kind of thing in our store, and we kind of instituted the policy that we were still going to accept it, and then we just had to make sure that the cashiers were taking extra steps after they handled the cash, so they would sanitize their hands immediately, that kind of thing. And the reason why we chose that was because our clientele is generally a little bit more upwards in age, and they prefer that method of payment. And I feel to be a family run business that's been in Burlington for 27 years, and all of a sudden you turn around and say your $20 bill is no good here. I mean, that was a tough one to kind of come to a decision with, but we figured as long as we take the right precautions, I don't think there should be any sort of backlash with it.
yeah, it's just the extra little steps that you then need to take.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, I don't know if I mentioned, but I did some work with your dad years ago. And one of the things that I learned very quickly about the grocery store was how much of a family the employees and customers are. Everyone seems to know everyone. There's a real family atmosphere in the grocery store. So I can completely see what you're saying about the demographic and needing to take cash and just doing what your customers want from you.
Oh yeah, usually if there's any concerns, people they go right to the top, and they'll come and talk to us. They know how to get their concerns heard and dealt with, so they'll talk to us directly.
That's great.
That's great. That's great from a customer perspective. But how about the supply chains? Have you been able to keep your shelves stocked? And particularly talk about something that I don't know why, but toilet paper. Tell me about toilet paper.
Well, I mean,
Mark never thought he'd say out loud.
the story of toilet paper, we don't know where it came from. But I mean, within that first week of the COVID thing kind of taking over, our grocery manager had happened to, he was able to procure a few skids of toilet paper, so several thousand things of toilet paper, and I think it was within maybe 2 days, like 6 hours. Within 2 days, it was all gone. And we had, our shelves were empty for, probably about a week after that. And we got a little bit here, and, we have a really good relationship with a lot of our suppliers who are kind of, they're niche as well. And they, we know them, and they tend to like us quite a bit. So they were able to provide us with certain brands that kept their shelves, at least we had one type of toilet paper on the shelf. But, I mean, now everything's pretty much back to normal in the toilet paper regard. Now it's yeast.
Okay, but how about how about your supply chains? Are they regular? Are they sporadic? Tell us about how you get the goods into the store.
Well, on a normal weekly basis, we would always, you would do your ordering and you would get your deliveries, your major deliveries, every day of the week. And we would mostly have them come on kind of Mondays and Thursdays for kind of the bulk of our grocery items. And, for the first kind of couple of weeks, you would expect a delivery on a Monday, and it would maybe come on a Thursday, or you just, you would expect it to come on a Friday, and then you would get it the middle of next week. So you would be out of those items for 4 or 5 days. The big thing was that you would go through the store and you'd do all your ordering, and maybe only 60%, 70% of the items that you ordered would actually show up. So then you would just repeat the process. And that's when it became a little bit of an issue with, spending a lot of time and energy and money trying to fill your shelves, and things would just not show up. That was the early times. Now it's getting a little bit better in grocery. We haven't really had too much of a problem with produce. At the beginning, maybe a little bit with your bananas and some of your more staple goods, but unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses that had to close down, like restaurants, that kind of thing, and that kind of opened up kind of a lot of supply in the produce area. So we haven't had too many issues procuring produce, even though they've had a lot of changes from our suppliers' ends or at the Toronto Food Terminal there. They've been doing a lot of changes over there with access to product and that kind of thing. But it's harder now, but things, 10 weeks later, things are getting a little easier. So
everybody's getting into a groove now, are they?
Everybody's getting into a groove. Everybody's able to kind of, now they're able to get a lot of their supplies from overseas a little easier than they were a month ago.
Right. Well, it's good to
Daniel, if I can just follow up, Kim, for just a moment. So it's getting regular with your deliveries to the store. How about prices? Have suppliers taken advantage of this COVID-19 and pumped up prices?
I don't think there's too much taking advantage of. I know maybe toilet paper has gone up a little bit, but it hasn't really been reflected in our prices. We've kind of kept things pretty level in that regard. I think the only thing that we're finding price-wise is that, with all the talk of the meat plants shutting down, meat's kind of creeping up. And it's not even your finer cuts of meat. It's your bread and butter cuts of meat, where your ground beef or your chuck, that kind of thing that goes into making your hamburgers and all that kind of stuff. That's the thing that's in high demand, and that's the prices that we're seeing increasing more so than anything else in the store. Everything else has been relatively stable on our end. Besides hand sanitizer too.
and the wipes. I can't find them anywhere, so I've stopped looking.
I took it for granted. That's something we haven't had on our shelves consistently for the last 10 weeks either. So yeah, they're impossible to get a hold of.
Yeah, those are two items very difficult to find. You mentioned earlier that flour and yeast are hard to keep on the shelves. And as a brand new mother to some homemade sourdough yeast, I would like to say what a pivot this has been. So are you finding flour's a tough one? For sure.
Flour's a tough one. I mean, we've adapted. We've kind of, packaged our own for people who really want it.
Okay.
We're still able to get large amounts of bulk yeast that we're packaging on our own, so that people who want it, they can get it.
There's going to be a run on the store later today.
Possibly, yes. But I mean, it was funny because I guess lots of people didn't have a lot of time to do that before, and now everyone's taking advantage of it because those were kind of sinking areas for us in the store. Things that weren't really generating a lot of interest or income, and now all of a sudden we're scrambling trying to find alternatives to put on there to fill in that gap. So
yeah, I'm finding it very relaxing. I've always enjoyed bread baking, so I think we're doing this as a stress reliever.
I haven't taken up bread baking myself, but maybe I'll try it.
Well, that makes two of us. We'll leave that all to Kim and expect to have some sourdough bread when we return to the
I'm going to look forward to
whatever that is.
Yeah, whenever we get back in the studio, I'll bring sourdough bread.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So with the cross border, and you were talking about produce, are there any objections to the produce and the way you're marketing it, as you know, just sitting in bins and people can go in and just touch the food? That must be a problem for you.
I mean, we've had a couple of people who sent us emails kind of concerning that. It hasn't been that big of an issue for our store, but I mean, you know, it's kind of just like any other day where, you know, if you buy fresh produce, you're kind of expected to clean it when you get home, and I haven't heard anything otherwise, that it's supposed to be, you know, thoroughly disinfected with a harsh chemical or anything like that. But, you know, we've just kind of directed any sort of people who've had any inquiries about that is to, you know, just do a proper rinse and clean of your produce, and it should be okay.
Good. Hey, Daniel, speaking of produce, tell me a little bit about Canadian farmers. What can we do to help them? They've got to be struggling right now.
Well, right now, I mean, they're all starting up their business for the year, and we do a lot of big business with them on any given year. You know, just buy locally as much as you can, and, you know, support the stores that are putting that kind of thing on the shelves. I know we just started with local asparagus last week, so that's going to be big start, and, you know, that usually kicks off the season until you get to all the nice corn and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I had a few talks with some of our flower suppliers for the garden center kind of before COVID hit, and they kind of expressed some concern about you know, their stock and that kind of thing. And, you know, they contacted me and said, hey, what do you think is going to happen? And I said, I really don't know. I mean, we're going to be open. We're going to follow all the protocols, and we'll see how it goes. And you know, now we can't even keep any of their stuff on the shelf. It's been busy. Everybody's been planting, and, you know, it's all local. It's all from Niagara, St. Catharines, up in Waterdown. So those guys they've been really good to us, and they've been having a decent season so far.
Oh, well, that's good. I was just concerned about things like harvesting and getting things to market, if there was any difficulties there. Or I even heard potatoes were, there's a real glut of potatoes, and if we want to help out Canadian farmers, we should be eating more potatoes right now. Anything else like that going on?
I heard the French fry potatoes. Yeah, I haven't heard too much about that beyond what I've heard in the news, not from our suppliers, but
okay.
they've been, I mean, they're still getting their food to market, and we're still buying them. You know, it's not so much a one-on-one thing anymore where you go and you give the guy a handshake and say, what do you got today? It's more of, you give him a call early in the morning and say, you know, give me this and give me that, and you know it will be good product because they always give you good product, and that's the way you got to do business these days.
Nice to hear.
Daniel, a major part must be managing the anxiety and mental health of employees and customers. So how much time in communication do you spend, or education of customers, to make everything run smoothly?
I mean, we're constantly we're using our social media platforms to do most of the talking for us. I mean, besides the people who kind of come into the store with their direct concerns. But I mean, we've been out on social media kind of with every change that we've been making in the store, kind of directing people as to these are why we're making the changes, and if you have any other suggestions or ideas as to how we can make things better, please let us know.
And Daniel, how about your own mental health and in this time of worry and anxiety and the economics? Tell us about that in the last couple of minutes that we've got left.
I mean, mine personally, it's not my mental health you got to worry about. It's my wife's. She was stuck at home for about 5 weeks with a toddler while I was working every day. So she was having a little bit of a rough go with it. But now that the weather's changed and she's not stuck in the basement or the house, and she can kind of go in the backyard a little bit more, it's a little bit easier. I mean, the economics and stuff like that. I mean, we've been fortunate that it hasn't really hit us too hard in our industry, and we've been supporting our employees kind of beyond their normal pay as well for
that's a great thing, Daniel. I want to thank you very much for taking the time and joining us today and letting people see behind the scenes at Marilu's Market, Walker's Line, and New Street. So thank you very much for joining us.
I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Daniel.
And Kim, I want you to stay safe. These are difficult times, and remember the issue, and your TV will continue to provide relevant, up-to-date information, and you can check Halton News each weekday for local news. Kim, we'll see you next time, and we'll see everybody here on The Issue, truly local television. Stay safe, everyone.